According to the Small Business Policy Index, Oregon ranks 44th in the nation for entrepreneur friendliness. Wow, that's not a very good place to be, especially according to some reports. There's some recovery from the Great Recession, but not everybody has felt it yet. And when we don't have a friendly environment for entrepreneurs, it's not going to make that recovery better. Welcome to People, Places, and Politics. I'm Patty Milne, your host, and I'm so happy to have Jan Meekcoms as my guest this evening. Jan is the State Director for NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Business. Jan, that's not good news, is it? That we are 44th in the nation for being friendly to entrepreneurs. I'm so glad you're here tonight, and I want you to talk about the environment we're currently in, the work you're doing, and of course this legislative session has just started, and we want our legislators to be very friendly to our businesses. So what's first on your agenda as this session has begun, and what is NFIB doing to help make Oregon more entrepreneur friendly?
Good questions and good opening and very dear to my heart. NFIB, just for a little background, stands for National Federation of Independent Business. And NFIB has been in existence since 1943. So we're in our 72nd year advocating for small businesses. So we know small business and we are entrepreneurs, are our favorite kind of people. And our mission is to promote and protect the right of our members to own, operate, and grow their business. So you can see that if you're in an unfriendly environment, it makes our mission very difficult. I would say our mission is challenged. I would say it's challenged. Obviously, we have what everyone is talking about now. We have minimum wage. We have legislation introduced that would raise minimum wage as much as $15 per hour. And Oregon already has now we're the third highest minimum wage in the country. Washington, D.C. is first, and Washington State is second, and Oregon is third at $9.25 an hour. And if you look across the spectrum of the U.S., most states are in the sevens. So we are already substantially higher than most states, and we're looking to go to double where we are now. And that is devastating for entrepreneurs and for small businesses. In the words of a gentleman that has a seafood processing company at the Oregon Business Plan this January, he said, if you raise minimum wage to $15 an hour, I will be forced to automate. And a company like mine in Iceland does with robotics. Oh, wow. With 3 people, does the production it takes me 45 people to do. And that's what you're going to see is a lot of job loss with that type of minimum wage, a lot of trickle-down difficulty that people don't consider. Then we have mandated paid sick leave for all employees and all businesses of any size. That is the current introduced legislation. And we have talk of a gas tax to fund the infrastructure. We all agree that our roads and bridges, that they need repair. And something needs to be done. Whether that's the solution or not is up for discussion. And we also have low carbon fuel standards, which also is considered a hidden phantom gas tax. So there's a double whammy there. And the feds are talking about a gas tax. So, you know, there's a lot on the horizon for us to deal with and for entrepreneurs to be concerned about.
All of those affect every business. Is that, I can't imagine any business escaping the effects of any of those taxes.
You're absolutely correct on that.
Product, yes. And yeah. So where do you begin? Where do you start in dealing with those and trying to get the legislators to understand this adverse effect. And does it make any sense to go in and sit down either with a committee or an individual legislator and just put the numbers down and say, look, because some of these legislators are in fact business owners themselves, or I would imagine many of them are in management. And don't they understand? Don't they get it?
Well, there are those that absolutely do, and that have been or are small business owners themselves. And in fact, interestingly enough, I was talking to one whose caucus is actually pushing this agenda, and he is a small business owner, and he communicated what the effect of minimum wage being raised to $15 an hour and mandated paid sick leave on his community, which is a rural type community. And he said, they don't believe me. And so those that don't have the experience as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, who hasn't had the responsibility to find, hire, train, maintain, keep employees, really don't understand what goes into it. And many of our small businesses are just coming out of the recession and seeing a light at the end of the tunnel for the first time. And they're looking at this legislation and seeing it all get wiped away. And we had owners that for 3 years during the recession did not personally take out a salary so they could keep the doors open for their employees, because it does take a lot to hire an employee and keep them, and they don't like to lose good employees. So, and they become like family. This was a 23-year-old business, and so a lot of the employees had been there for that length of time. So you do try. It is an educational process, but there is some mentality of our minds made up. Don't confuse us with facts. We've decided this is our agenda, and this is what we'd like to do, and that's where the citizens come in. We do have a representative form of government, and the constituent is king. And by mid-session, I'm pretty tired of the legislators and talking with them. They know my spiel. They're pretty tired of seeing me. But when a constituent comes in, that really communicates. Whether you're an opponent or a proponent, when you communicate your real live story and how what they are considering really works in the real world or doesn't work in the real world, it's very, very impactful. And I've sat in a committee meeting where you will have a parade of lobbyists, and you will have one citizen take time out of their life to come and tell their story. And it gets everyone's attention, and I've seen it actually turn the mood and the direction of a bill. It can be so impactful. So I think that is the most important thing that we can do, and that I'm doing that's most important to me for this session, is really working with my members and getting them engaged, getting them communicating, whether it's by phone, fax, email. The best, of course, is in person, and that would have to be in Salem because they're all at the Capitol until July. But it's really, really, really critical. And I know people have a tendency to feel, I'm just one person. It's not going to make any difference. And is just to really impose upon them that it does make a difference. It really does, and they need to exercise that right that we have paid so dearly to achieve in the United States.
So is there any one of these bills that you would say is more damaging than another, or how are you going to rank them, or is there a priority list, or?
Well, usually in any one session, we'll have a big major bill that one side is trying to move or someone's trying to move that we'll be working with, and that's pretty consuming. In this session, we have multiple bills besides minimum wage and mandated sick leave. There's also a plan for a retirement for any private business employer that doesn't have a retirement plan for their employees. that they would be mandated to facilitate a state-run retirement plan. And this is very troubling. First of all, it puts the state, it's growing government, and it's having them create a whole department and division for the purpose of being in competition with the private sector, the insurance companies, the financial planners, the banks, the insurance agents that have products from IRAs to 401ks and many, many tools. And then the federal government just came out with MIRA, which is really targeted at the lower income introduction savings plan for employees. And the burden, the potential burden for employers is something that they just really don't need at this point in time. And that's on top of health care. We don't know what direction that's going to go. So there's so much uncertainty with the entrepreneurs. So I would say when you add minimum wage, paid sick leave, the retirement plan, the gas tax, the low carbon fuel standards, BOLI, we just Monday had 5 bills from the Bureau of Labor and Industry. All of them were very troubling from an employer's perspective because they just opened a floodgate of liability. And especially for many of these bills, there are already statutes that give protection to the employee, like equal pay. There is discrimination. We have discrimination bills. And we believe in equal pay. We think that there should be equal pay. And the bad actors are so small by percentage. And to put 100% of employers into a very high liability, litigious environment because of these few bad actors does not serve Oregonians well.
No. Well, that seems to be an old trick. We're going to pass a law to protect you. We just won't talk about the laws that are already on the books, but guess what? We're not enforcing them, and then we can look like heroes because we're targeting this. We get front page news, you know, it's the headline, and, you know, Representative or Senator so-and-so is there for the people and going to make sure there's equal pay, when, like you say. So I hope, my question would be, is there going to be an effort to say, wait, stop, look, right here on the books, there's already protection.
Yes, I mean, the testimony on Monday was very strong in that direction, citing the Oregon statute that applied that would work in that scenario without broadening the laws so much. And then there's also, you know, family leave is being expanded upon way beyond the federal requirements. And Oregon kind of takes the federal requirements and takes it to the next level.
Yeah. We don't need to do that.
We don't.
Yeah.
And I just think that we already are one of the highest cost of hire states in the country as well. And so we're just going to take this to a whole new level. And it's just, we've been higher than the national average in unemployment for over 10 years now. And it's policy driven. And it's policies that put us in that situation. And we have one of the highest cost of housing for income in Portland. So the policies that they've been driving are not necessarily increasing the quality of life. And if you raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, everything is raised.
Well, yeah.
And it's not long before that raise is absorbed. And there will inevitably be job loss on top of it as well.
Well, speaking of the minimum wage and potentially raising it, the issue of, for example, for teenagers to have a training wage, or there's another word that's been applied, oh, it's escaping me at the moment. But nonetheless, talk about any efforts to get kids back to work.
Well,
teenagers.
That's a really, really good point, because just yesterday I read a magazine that had the top 10 states, worst states for youth.
And where are we?
We were number 1
Surprise, surprise.
And it was because of cost of housing and also jobs. And so it is really a problem in Oregon. We have these educated people that are having a very difficult time finding employment. The best thing we can do for Oregonians is create a very robust, economically inviting environment for businesses to, when you get a business that looks over the landscape of the different states and where they should go to set up business, many will pass up Oregon, or if they're here, they will leave because it's becoming unfriendly. We haven't even touched on our tax situation yet. And so that will bring in business, create jobs, increase salaries, and really create a robust environment that people will have a higher quality of life than they do when you have policy that stifles that.
What do the states that are business friendly, what are they doing? What could we borrow from them that would be really easy to implement? I know this is a question just coming out of the air here, but I don't mean to put you on the spot. But are you aware of anything? If in a perfect world, what should pass this legislature to help Oregon be more business friendly?
Well, to take a phrase from our medical friends is do no harm.
Right.
When you're looking at a bill that you're passing legislation, just make sure it doesn't harm our economic environment. It doesn't harm our businesses, because that is the foundation of these communities, and it is private sector, not government, that creates jobs. And Idaho is considered business friendly, and I've heard that their regulatory environment is so much friendly that I know some Washington people that have gone to Idaho because they were looking at putting their factory in Washington, and what they were able to do for so much less money in Idaho just made it so much more appealing to be there. And Wyoming is considered to be kind of a sleeper darling for entrepreneurs now, and it's kind of coming on board. And typically, when a state is considered business friendly, it is regulatory and taxes. It's those two issues that have the tendency to make them that way.
So the phrase do no harm. The bills, and I have not studied them closely, but I've looked at the list and some summaries. Not a one of them should pass. If you're going to do no harm, or
I would agree.
Is there anything in there that is salvageable?
The bills that we've been talking about, in my opinion, are not. They're not economic friendly. They're not job friendly. In fact, there's we have a member, a 62-year company, third generation, 30 employees. They work 24 hours a day. This goes back to the entry and training wages. Some part-time high schoolers, some college students that are, those have very important jobs, and those part-time jobs are really critical to them at that time in their life. And also some full-time employees that have been there 30 years. With the increase in wage, if it goes through, it would be almost $200,000 a year that that they would have to figure out how to make up. And they are in a 24/7 call center. And if they can't necessarily raise their prices, because that is a perfect business that the clients would then go into automation. Yeah. And so if something like this goes through in our own community right here, 30 people would lose their job, and a 62-year company would go away. And that is real. I don't care. Someone could say it's not true, you're fibbing, but it is true. And I have the testimony that will be provided when we get to that point in the session, that is a very real story of a company in our community.
Wow. And those people, where do they go for a job then? What replacement job is there for those individuals?
Yep.
There isn't.
We're not. Well, that's interesting that you should bring that up, because the Brookings Institute has been following births and deaths of companies in the United States for 35 years. And we are always creating more companies, more entrepreneur enterprises than those that are falling aside. For the first time in 35 years, that has crossed.
Wow.
And we now have more deaths or companies going out of business than companies being started in the United States. And that's a first time. That's a first in 35 years. And that's a very alarming, that should be very alarming for everyone, legislators for sure, because to some extent, again, that's policy driven. And, you know, free enterprise is foundational to our culture and our country and what we're all about. And it is the small businesses that contribute to our communities, that donate time and money and services to our little leagues and so many of, you know, nonprofits. And when they get tight, when things get too tight, those are the first things that go. So our whole community suffers from it. So, you know, it's not to be taken lightly.
No.
And I think that we should look at entrepreneurs and small business as being very threatened and very under siege at this point in time. And when you have a threatened species, what do? You start protecting it. And that's what we need to, we need that viewpoint in Oregon. We need to start really protecting these enterprises and these small businesses that mean so much to our state.
That goes back to the do no harm.
Yes.
Yeah, don't add on any additional taxes and regulations that are smothering. One of the things I hear a lot is business, the uncertainty that, and now that the legislature is annual, I don't care if they're there for 3 months or 6 months, and because of course there are committee meetings that are ongoing and somebody's working on creating some kind of piece of legislation. What kind of certainty could be, is there any certainty to express, to relay to businesses? Anything at all?
Change.
Change in what?
That also is a good question. As we know, we've always had the classic definition of that confidence is what backs our economic status, and that confidence has been so undermined. And there is, we have since 1973 been polling our members, and we have about 7,000 members in the state of Oregon, and we have about 350,000 members nationwide, as we're in all 50 states and Washington, D.C., but is where we advocate. And so since 1973, we've been doing this monthly polling of our members, and we call it the Small Business Optimism Index. And I would say what's plagued the index the most for the last several years has been the #1 concern is uncertainty. And it withholds them from hiring, from expanding, from capital investment, all of those things that contribute and build a robust economy. So I would say the agenda that we're looking at in Oregon for 2015 is very disconcerting for our small businesses, and they're very concerned. And they're just a lot of them are this wait and see. We're not going to do anything until we see what comes out of this session, because it's potentially devastating.
It really is. We have a few minutes left, and I want you to be sure also to touch on who else do you, as director, state director, NFIB, who else do you interact with? What other organizations are helping you fight this fight? And then before we close, be sure to talk about your contact information and encourage people to get a hold of you and or become a member.
That would be
So
great.
be sure to share that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think we do have a very strong business coalition, and it's made up of the agricultural community, like the the Farm Bureau, the wheat growers, and also like the timber industry. We have other business organizations such as Associated Oregon Industry, the Oregon State Chambers of Commerce we work very closely with. I'm trying to think what some of the other, there's where I've not had so many coalitions in the past. I now meet on a weekly basis with about at least 5 or 6 coalitions, because we are all so dramatically impacted by the potential of this session that we're all really joining forces to, and sometimes, one group is made up of these people and another group is made up of these people. We have the home builders, of course, and the Oregon restaurant and lodging people, and employers. It's all of the groups that are the big employers in this state and contribute tremendously to our GDP and economic wherewithal. And then regarding NFIB,
yes,
as I mentioned, we're in our 72nd year advocating in all 50 states and Washington, D.C. for small business. You can go to our website, nfib.com.
Very easy.
And you will find, as a small business owner or someone who's interested in what's going on in small business, the website is just a plethora of information and valuable data. And you can go to nfib.com/Oregon or OR, or you can get to us from the main website too and find out what is going on in Oregon and what our legislative agenda is, and victories and challenges and events that we have. We have our Small Business Day at the Capitol on April 29th, and anyone's invited to attend, whether you're a member or not, a small business owner or not. And we have legislators and subject matter of interest to small businesses and the economy, and it's really a fun day.
Good. And so again, to recap briefly, the benefits of being a member of NFIB, if I'm a small business owner and I'm feeling very uncomfortable after listening to this program, what benefit, to give me a little encouragement, is there?
Well, what you don't know can hurt you, so it does keep you informed on the federal level and the state level what is going on. We also have a lot of discounted benefits, that we have a very substantial benefit program that as a member you get discounts from many different providers and services, and very informed, and you help us do what we do, which is advocate as the voice of small business. And I say we're the voice that protects what you built in the halls of government.
Good, good. Well, thank you so very much, Jan. Again, Jan Meekcoms, who is the NFIB State Director. Call her, go to the website, get in touch, and learn more about how to protect your business, our economy, and jobs here in Oregon.
Thank you, Patty.
Thanks,
it's
Jan.
been a pleasure to be here.
Appreciate it. Okay.